This is the new Canon C400, and it might just be Canon's most complete and feature-rich cinema camera yet. It has a 6K full-frame backside illuminated sensor with 16 stops of dynamic range, RF mount, a huge amount of connectivity, RAW recording internally, better high frame rates, improved LCD mount, and is even the world's first camera to have 3 native ISO values. It is a hugely powerful new cinema camera, so much so that it's actually quite hard to figure out where it sits in Canon's lineup now. In many ways, this is a best of both worlds between the C300 Mark III and C500 Mark II. It's full frame, but it has all those high frame rates. It's not Canon's flagship model, and it's not priced as if it's Canon's flagship model. But to be honest, I'm kind of finding it hard to figure out why this isn't Canon's new flagship model. This is really quite an impressive new camera. The sensor is a completely new one. It's 6K and full frame, and the dynamic range looks exceptional. This is a pre-production camera, so we're only doing casual real-world tests, of course, but it certainly felt like we had all of the dynamic range we could possibly need with this RAW format. But it's not a DGO sensor like the C70 and C300 Mark III, which I think a lot of people were hoping for a full-frame version of. So I asked Canon about this, and they said that the consensus was that the dynamic range was already very good, and the DGO technology would have inherently slowed down the sensor's readout speed, and therefore impacted those high frame rates and impacted rolling shutter. And certainly we didn't spot any problems with rolling shutter here, which I'm very pleased about. It will be interesting to see how it scores in more scientific tests once production cameras hit the market. In front of the sensor is the same ND system which we've seen on their other cameras. Very high quality drop-down ND filters which let you use 2, 4, 6, 8 or 10 stops if you turn on extended ND in the menus. Perhaps the biggest new feature about this sensor is that it's the first one on the market with 3 native ISO values. In log, these are 800, 3200 and 12800, which is very interesting. This could well be Canon's best camera yet in low light. So we put this camera side by side quickly with the Sony FX6, as that's what the obvious comparison is when it comes to high ISOs. And it's not too far off. This is log on both cameras with the high base ISO of 12,800 on each of them. We then used a color space transform inside Resolve to keep the grading nice and fair and even from each log format into DaVinci Intermediate, then to Rec 709A to finish. The noise is actually quite similar between the two, but the color difference kind of shocked me. The Sony, for some reason, is really blue on the wall behind Nathaniel, while it made his skin quite orange. Now the light wasn't blue, and the wall wasn't blue, and his skin's not orange. The Canon footage is actually much closer to how the scene looked in real life with our eyes. Now this test really impressed me. The FX6 held up as pretty much the best camera on the market right now for low light work. But this certainly seems like Canon now have a camera to rival it. And having 3 native ISOs counteracts the drawback of having a high native ISO like 12,800. On the FX6 you have to be at either 800 or 12,800, which is often too high for average nighttime filming. It's actually much more common to be sitting at 3,200 or 6,400 in most nighttime situations. So having a native ISO at 3,200 as well is really useful. 800 for daylight, 3,200 for nighttime, 12,800 for when the light really disappears. Another big change is that we now finally have the RF mount, just like the C70 and R5C. So this now unifies their Cinema EOS lineup around RF. It also means that fantastic lenses like the new hybrid 24 to 105mm f2.8 and the new 35mm f1.4, which was also announced today, have a better home on a native full-frame camera which was designed around Pro Video. This 24-105 on the C400 is a fantastic pair, and it really lets you work very quickly indeed. I think this is going to be a very popular combination for people. There's also a new RF to PL adapter, which uses the same wing style system that we saw on the C70's focal reducer mount to keep it really strong and rigid on the camera body. Now, I didn't have one of these for this video yet though, but luckily there are tons of other RF to PL mounts on the market, like this one from DZO Film, which we used for this shoot. So let's go through what formats the camera can actually record. For the full 6K resolution, you do need to be using the RAW formats, and that's Canon RAW Lite in HQ, SQ or LT. With these, you can get up to 60p in 6K. You can also drop that RAW down to 4K or 2K to get access to all the same high frame rates as in the other modes, but that does crop in, of course, to your sensor. Then you can get downsampled 4K or 1080p with the full sensor width and record that as regular XF-AVC, which is their normal broadcast codec. Or you can use their new codecs, their new MP4 based XF-AVC-S and XF-HEVC-S codecs. Now, these are designed to make MP4 files easier to work with in a professional environment, giving them a better naming structure, keeping the same name with proxy files, and capturing more metadata inside the file. So in these modes, you can go up to 120 in 4K and 180 in 1080p. If you want to crop in, you can, of course, to Super 35 and Super 16, but you don't have to crop in to get those high frame rates, which is always nice to see. So let's spend a bit of time looking at the physical design of the camera. So this is definitely reminiscent of the C300 and C500, but the actual body is quite a bit smaller and slightly squarer. In fact, the more you look at each area, the more you notice how different it is. The side handle now connects with a USB-C cable that's got a nice right angle attachment to it, which is quite neat. And it now has 3 assignable buttons on it rather than 1, which I used all the time when filming. I had these set to turn my autofocus on and off, show false color to check exposure, and magnify to check focus. And it is so useful to have access to all 3 of these right here on the grip without having to take my hands off. The top handle has also been completely redesigned. It now has Canon's multifunction shoe connection, which it connects by, but it also has another one at the top so that you don't lose that functionality when it's connected. It is very strong and robust with 3 decent locking screws to tighten it down. It is very confidence inspiring to hold. The actual monitor mount itself is now using standard 15mm rods and a sliding NATO rail, so it's much more in line with the rest of the industry. The monitor itself is good and it goes nice and bright when working outside like this. However, some people might find this a little bit small and these bezels around the edge do feel a little bit chunky. Interestingly though, it connects over USB-C cables which lock, which is neat. And I do wonder if this is going to become a bit more of a standard across the industry moving forwards. Less proprietary cables and more USB-C. I would love though to see Canon make some alternative monitor options. A larger screen, maybe one that can go more centrally on the camera, maybe a viewfinder on the side. I think those would be really useful to have as options for customers. You can also ditch this whole top handle solution and just mount the screen much more centrally directly to the camera, easily enough in a bunch of different ways. It is less elegant, but it just keeps the camera much more compact, which is sometimes very useful. The buttons down the operator side are very familiar and they still light up, which is so useful when you're working. They aren't quite the same as the C300 Mark III and C500 Mark II though. Gone is the zebra button and the LUT button, and we now have our audio controls here as well, which is a much better place for them. We also have our 2 card slots. There's one CF Express Type B, which we're going to want to be using for the RAW and the higher frame rate functions. Then there's an SD card slot for when you just want the more ordinary codecs. On the back, we have a lot of ports. There's basically everything that was on the C300 and C500, as well as the optional expansion modules for them. There's HDMI and 12G SDI, a second 3G SDI port, Ethernet, Genlock, timecode, a lens port on the front, and 2 mini XLR ports for your audio. So that is a big difference from the C300 and C500. Those have full-size XLR, this has mini XLR, but it does mean that it matches the C70, which is quite nice. The battery is the same BPA 30 and 60 batteries as their other cameras, although there is a new style of these batteries with an N at the end. Now this is just a slightly more powerful version of these batteries that is only needed on this camera, and that's needed to power everything at the camera at once. Without those, with just the previous batteries, you're going to lose access to the multi-interface shoe and the lens port at the front when you're filming. Overall, I think Canon have done a great job with the C400. It feels like everything that I liked about the C300 and C500, but more refined, and losing a lot of the weaknesses in the process. I was asked by a colleague which camera in Sony's lineup that I thought this went up against the most, and I thought about it, and to be honest, it's quite a hard one. There's a lot in common here with the FX6, like the high frame rates, the good sensor readout speed, the grip on the side, and of course that high ISO, the 12,800 native ISO for that exceptional low light. But this can do a lot more than the FX6. There's lots more ports on the back, raw recording internally, 6K, that extra native ISO of 3,200. This is definitely a more high-end cinema camera than the FX6 is. So what about the Sony Burano? Well, I think there's actually more in common there. 6K RAW, while the Burano has 8.6K RAW, but both have great dynamic range and lots of ports and functionality for a pro workflow. The C400 seems to have a slightly better readout speed and less rolling shutter, while the Burano has that fantastic electronic ND system and of course IBIS in camera, which is what makes that camera so unique. But the C400 is significantly lower priced. In fact, it's not far off a quarter of the price. It's hard to know what to compare it to from Sony. But I think what's safe to say is that this is a very powerful new camera from Canon, especially considering its size and its price. I think this could quite easily become one of Canon's most popular cameras in a very long time. If you want to pre-order one for yourself, the links at ProAV are down in the description, and let us know what you think of the camera in the comments section. Do you like what you see, or is there anything that you think is missing? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.